This year, people in Boston will also vote for city councilors with a preliminary election on Tuesday, September 26th. There will be 3 open seats on the council, one of them being vacated by Tito Jackson, who currently represents District 7. The district includes most of Roxbury and parts of Dorchester, the South End, and the Fenway. Among those hoping to be the new councilor in District 7 is our guest, Hassan Williams. Thank you very much for being with us, Hassan.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
First of all, talk about your background, because you have an interesting life story.
So, born and raised here in Boston. Along with that, went to high school here. Some time after high school, ended up becoming homeless here in the city of Boston. Then went from being homeless to getting a room, getting a job, ended up going to Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. Then returned to go to law school here at Boston College Law School. Odd thing is that when I was at Morehouse, I was also homeless at Morehouse because I couldn't afford to stay on campus or, you know.
And somewhere along the way, you were in Asia.
Yeah, during my junior year, I ended up going to Japan and to study in Japan. And then when I came back, I actually went back over to study in China. So then I went to law school from there, and I ended up, I practiced law here. Actually, I was a teacher for 10 years in the Boston Public School System. I taught Japanese, mathematics, and science.
What about the law practice? What have you been specializing in?
Well, currently I specialize in litigation, so I'm a trial attorney. So anything going to trial, whether it's civil or criminal, I'm a trial attorney.
Well, you've also run for office at least a couple of times already. What are you trying to do?
So, in that I am a formerly homeless person, and I believe that I cannot stand by and just watch people be displaced. That's the real reason why I ended up getting into this race. Because I think, well, we have a 5-point plan on how to stabilize gentrification. Like I said, I'm probably not going to really go into that, but it's based on what we've seen happen in San Francisco and what's actually happening here. And I don't actually understand whether people really see what happened in San Francisco is happening here. You know, San Francisco had an open policy with respect to development. If you were developing, no problem. That pushes people out because once you start developing, the prices goes up, property values go up, rents go up. Rents are going up, wages not going up, so people are getting displaced. And that's been the model. So now currently, the average price for a 1-bedroom apartment in San Francisco is $3,800. That's where Boston's going. Boston now has a green light on all development. They're pushing development at such a fast pace that the property values again are going up. Rents are going up, but wages are not going up.
Now that goes against what we usually hear, that when you increase supply, that makes it easier for people to demand housing at a lower price. So why don't you think that's happening?
Well, that's the supply side economics. It's really based on almost like speculation, if you will. So the investors are like, okay, there's a boom happening. Boston, in fact, is number 5 in the world for real estate. So all the investors are coming here and dumping their money here. They feel it's a better bet because we have all the infrastructure similar to what San Francisco had. We have the housing, we have the schools, we have the financial background, we have the industries like bioscience and things of that nature. So they have the anchors that you want to have here, and you have companies come here, GE's coming here, Amazon's here, right? So they have all the anchors to be here, and that brings all the pricing here. So they're speculating that these are going to be enough space, enough housing for those. So the funny thing about it is our vacancy rate is low, right? So we do still have a shortage, if you will, even though we're growing and we're building. And so that's why the prices are going up.
Well, one idea that's already been presented to the City Council is to give tenants more protections, especially just cause eviction. I know there's been some pushback. Some property owners say it's going to make it hard for them to have the incentive to fix up older houses. If you had a vote on that today, what would you do?
I would go with that. That one of the things I really would look at because, I understand the landlord's perspective in that they want to maximize the dollar value for their properties. So therefore, they want to get the highest rents possible. But they have to understand something. You have to stabilize that you have a societal objective. You should have a societal objective like everyone else has a societal objective. You shouldn't just be about greed, money, greed, Lord, kind of incentive. So I have a young lady who I spoke with on the campaign. She's 24 years old. She used to be homeless. She now has an apartment. Well, her landlord's now kicking her out because she lives in Roxbury and they can get more rent for the apartment. That's the only reason she's being put out. She's not being put out because she missed her rent and she's not paying rent on time. She's paid all the rent on time, but she's being displaced, right? And that's what I call green lords. I don't really have a lot of sympathy for green lords.
This is BNN News, and we're talking with Hassan Williams, a candidate for City Council in District 7. Hassan, what about the Boston Public Schools, especially the amount of money for the schools? The city is spending more money than the previous year, but at the same time, we hear students and parents talking about cuts and programs. So what do you think should be done?
So, I'm a former educator for 10 years in the Boston Public School system. And, the one thing that still stands out to me, and I still will beat the drum for it, is we need to have the structure of all the schools the same across the system. Every school should be a Latin school structure. I remember when Fenway High School was the model. Fenway High School, a small school in Fenway, became the model for the city. Everyone wanted to make a small school because the small school model worked. Well, that's a small school. You cannot change Madison Park High School, which at that time had 1,700 students, to be a Fenway High School, which has 250 students. So I think the school that really should be the model is Boston Latin School, a school that has 2,200 students, that has the expectations, has the structure. When you walk in that building, you're thinking education, you're believing education, you're living education. So why is that model not the model in every single school? Because I remember when I was at the Rogers Middle School during busing, and I keep on telling people there's a movie called Class Act. There's two different worlds in the same school. When I was in the school before busing, I was in the advanced cluster. So when they bused students of color into the Rogers Middle School, they took all the white students that were in the regular cluster, they put them in the advanced cluster, they put all the students coming in, students of color, put them in the regular cluster, and one door separated them, and it was two different worlds. It was tailored two different worlds. And on the one side, education was happening, and on the other side, it was mayhem. They destructuralized the other side. So that's been the model throughout the city. If you notice, all the high schools, whether it's Brighton High School, whether it's South Boston High School, whether it's Hyde Park High School, if you walked in those schools within the last 10, 15 years, you saw kids hanging in the hallways, people not doing what they're supposed to do, administrators walking by with kids hanging in the hallways, not questioning them where they belong, how to get to class. But you walk in Latin school, you don't find that. You found education was happening. You walk in Latin Academy, you find the same thing. So the question to me is, I question those people who are not structuralizing the schools similar to Boston Latin School because I don't think they want education to happen.
Talk about Madison Park, because do you want Madison Park to be like an exam school in Boston, or maybe like one of the most successful voc ed schools in Massachusetts?
Madison Park has the ability to be the most successful voc school in the history of America if Boston Public Schools commits to doing what they need to do there. For instance, I spoke with the folks for the police department and the fire department. Those departments should have their cadet programs through Madison Park High School because it's a vocational school. It makes kids realize that there's a real meaning to education. So if I come to this school and I want to become a police officer, well, my junior year, my senior year, I'm now in the cadet program. Upon graduating, I go right into the academy to become a police officer, right? So now education means something. The transition of education means something. And we have all these different city departments where we have public works department. That's vocational. We have Boston Water and Sewer. That's vocational. Why are they not going through Madison Park High School? Why are the resources not going through Madison Park High School? So that was what makes the school more precise to its goal, its mission, and the students helpful. Guess what? Kids will now have hope. They have jobs. They're walking out. So everyone doesn't have to go to college, but a pathway could be clearly made for them to function that way and to have a great, great career. Because think about it, police officers. One of the police officers made $250,000 last year. $94,000 his base pay and $100,000+ as his detail pay.
Turning to public safety, the rate of violent crime is down on all kinds of violent crime. But if you were counselor today, I'm sure people would be calling up. But yes, but look at all these shootings. They're up by 24% over last year. What do you do about that?
So there has to be a summit, if you will. When we were at Madison Park High School, when I was an administrator at Madison Park High School, we made all the kids sit down with each other, made them sit down with each other. So if you had an argument with someone, you were not just walking away from the argument. You were actually brought into my office, you went in the person, and you had to sit, and now you have to talk about it, to really work through your issue. We're not letting our kids work through their issues. Therefore, they have all this rage and all this anger sitting inside them, and no one actually directing it and showing them how to get rid of it and how to really communicate with someone other than carrying a gun. I have I'm a defense attorney as well. Some of my clients get caught with these guns in them, and I say, well, what are you carrying a gun for? I talked to a young man today. What are you carrying a gun for? He said, because I got fear. So what are you fearing? Why are you walking around with fear? No one has taught you how to actually address even the fear that he has. So he thinks that he has to carry a gun. Not that he wants to, he really believes he has to carry a gun. Well, then at Madison, we didn't have those shootings at Madison. We didn't have those stabbings at Madison because we actually had people talking to each other, and they build relationships that way. And the police department needs to build relationships that way as well. When I was a kid, we had cops that walked the beat, right? They knew us, we knew them, right? So we actually talked to them. We have bikers that ride through, we have police officers that drive through, we have no one that's really talking to our kids. Now, we have some officers that do that on their own. They take their own initiative to get out and they talk to the kids. And they get to know the kids. Some folks in the gang unit do that because they actually deal with them every single day. But we need people who do that consistently throughout the day. It's not just on a 1-2 hour period. Throughout the day, there's a police officer talking with people, getting to know people, understanding the dynamics of the neighborhood, and understanding how to help people to communicate with each other. And that's, I think, will be much more successful.
We should finally mention that you've got at least a social media presence. So if people want to find out more about the campaign, what's the best way to do that?
VoteHassanWilliams.com
Okay.
is probably the best way.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Hassan Williams, candidate for City Council in District 7.